I have you now.
They want to mess with my droid. They're going to pay for it.
This is the way.
You may fire when ready.
Blow that piece of junk out of the sky!
The way you're fighting, you wouldn't have lasted long.
Hello there.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
What an exciting day it is to be a Star Wars fan, where we get The Mandalorian Season 3 premiere. It's Chapter 17, The Apostate, and we're here to break it down for you. The wait's over. I hope you've seen it. We've had about, 15 hours to digest this. Colin and I woke up at 5 in the morning to make sure that we got this coverage for you. We released our live coverage on our Patreon, so you get our rapid reactions as soon as they come out. There's tons of hints to future tie-ins and future stories that we're going to dive deep. We've got a really good show for you today. We're going to talk about all of the aspects of The Mandalorian, how it connects to canon, how it connects to the rest of The Mandalorian. We've got some exciting news. We've got the Star Wars moment of the week, and you get to hear our rapid reactions. So we really want to jump right in, head first, right into talking about The Mandalorian. And so I've got with me right here, Gorian Shard's guard, Colin Archer. But Colin, I have a question for you to open this up. Do you think that they've lost the way, or this is the way with Season 3?
Who's they? The authors? The makers?
Yeah, Favreau, Pedro Pascal, the whole team.
I end up in my head. You say they. The Mandalorians? Yeah, Children of the Watch.
No, the team.
The team, okay. No, heck no. We're blasting out the cannon right here. We're hitting it hard. We get to see everything that you could ever hope for and more. So many little tidbits that we had no idea was coming. And I don't know about you, Carter. I've only watched it twice. I'm sure in the third or fourth watch throughs in this later this week, I'm going to find out more.
Right.
So, yeah, this is such an exciting time. I love waking up early today to do this. And
isn't it a great way to start your morning? Like, your day's just better when you got to wake up and watch The Mandalorian.
Way better. I get to annoy my wife with all the stuff, how excited I am, hoots and hollers from the other room. Yeah, but we recorded our rapid reactions to this show. It's immediately after we watched it. I mean, we're texting each other the whole time. We don't want to spoil each other, so it's just like emojis or something.
Right.
But
chains of exclamation points.
Right. Especially in one part of the show that I was particularly happy about. And so immediately after the show ended, we got onto our recording software and recorded our rapid reactions. Here they are.
Well, Colin, I would say that The Mandalorian is certainly back. How about you?
Oh, gosh, Carter, it's unbelievable. I've just chills the whole time.
I know. I mean, after this long 2-year hiatus, we got the Book of Boba Fett in there, and that was good. That was great. But after this long hiatus without the show about Mando, we got exactly what we expected, and it was perfect. It felt like, to me, the whole show was definitely a setup. He hit the highlights. He hit the armorer, he hit Greef Karga, and he hit Bo-Katan to give us all the information. Greef Karga's, I'm confused. Why are you with the child? And it just kind of gave us all the context we need for the season.
Yeah, and one thing does it for me is the pinnacle of this whole episode. Purrgil.
I know.
I know.
I couldn't believe it.
I could not believe it. And this is what? 10 seconds of the episode? And I'm just sitting here reeling, dude, about that one thing. I think I texted you while I was watching it with just exclamation points. Of course, I'm not going to spoil anything for you, because we got to do this reaction. But I saw that, about fell out of my chair. Crazy.
I know. It was astounding. The Purrgil are kind of a goofy concept. Space whales that travel through hyperspace are not like standard Star Wars fare. You're not going to get that in a movie. And to see it even on a TV show is mind-blowing. Just to see that translated from Rebels in the first season, this just gives us such an indication of where this season is headed, who's going to be involved, and what the big threat is here. And we're both thinking about who that is.
Yeah, what is it? The pirate. What was his name?
Well, the pirate's name was Grand, but I'm talking about with the Purrgil. Clearly, the threat's going to be Thrawn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's gonna be great. And then
Yeah, you're right. The Pirates, the minor threat, going to be there. Pops up when needs to make a situation hairy for sure. But yeah,
Harry, that's a good one. I really liked his design, looking like the moss dripping off of him. I thought it was great.
Yeah. And the ship was cool. Yep.
Yeah, the ship, the N1, we saw in plenty of action. I mean, the opening scene with all the Mandalorians, I was surprised. I thought that was a flashback to Din Djarin as a child. And so I was surprised to see it was a Newfoundling. There were so many Mandalorians there.
It was, and Din knows where they are. You know, they're not just casually hiding out.
Right. And one of the small details from that is the banners they were using were obviously the mythosaur, that is the standard all Mandalorian symbol. But the banner on the left was a branch with red leaves, and that is the official symbol of Clan Vizsla. And so this gives us a better indication, especially with Bo-Katan's dialogue, that the Children of the Watch are almost positively descendants of Death Watch.
Right.
And then, go ahead.
To see. It's cool to see all the little details on this. I have to watch this at least 2 more times.
Yeah, definitely.
Navarro, they need to build Navarro at Disney World right next to Batu. I want to go there.
I know. It's changed so much. Grief Karga looks so good. There was a really good parallel right there between Grief Karga and Lando Calrissian's dialogue on Cloud City of, well, that's the price you pay for being successful. Like that kind of thing. That was really cool. And also, Navarro was filled with actually laugh out loud moments. I mean, that had the perfect humor. The Grogu spinning around in the chair, him always messing with food, and then him about to pop the Anzellans, man. You know how much I love Babu Frick. He's my favorite glup shitto in all of Star Wars, and so I was happy to see those Anzellans on screen.
Yeah. And, this has set the tone for the whole season exactly like you just said. We know what happened to Cara Dune. She's in the Special Forces. Moff Gideon's, he's in jail.
Right.
We got the Anzellans. We got the pirates. We got Kalevala. Man.
I know. Kalevala. That's amazing. I mean, Satine and Bo-Katan's homeworld. We've never even seen it before. And now we've finally seen it. That really, really is crazy.
So many different stuff. And Din being a dad to Grogu. He's not just a caretaker. He's teaching him about how to do the ships. And, flying that whole scene against the pirates, that's my second favorite next to the Purgo.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. I mean, it's a good scene showing off the N1, and we see, we knew these pirates were going to be a little bit of a problem right from the beginning, and we haven't seen the last of Navarro. But this whole trailer, or this whole episode, continues the theme of these Disney live action shows where they're like 75% of the trailer is in the first episode. I mean, we really, other than the TIE Fighter chase and some of Bo-Katan's unconnected dialogue, is, everything else is in this episode, which is, again, just a very, very exciting prospect.
Yeah, everything is just so over the top. Can't wait for more.
No, I can't either. I'm excited to offer this live stream out to our patrons. If you're subscribing to Patreon, you're about to get this live stream 7 a.m. right after the Mandalorian premieres. And then you'll hear this right now on our podcast if you're listening after the fact. And so we're playing this for you right now. It's been awesome. The Mandalorian, this was the perfect tonal setting for the rest of the series. Gave us all the missions, gave us exactly where he's headed, showed us what's gonna go on here.
So pumped for the next 7-8 weeks.
Yeah, I can't wait either. It was awesome. Well, join us now for the rest of the Star Wars Station Communication Podcast.
Those were our rapid reactions. We released them on Patreon, 7 a.m. bright and early for anybody who tunes in early like us. But you just got to listen to them. That was our first thoughts. We've had all day to digest the show now. We've had all day to think about it, see how the puzzle pieces fit together.
Watched it again.
Got our notes out. Because the first time, Colin, I really like a pure watch through. No notes, no subtitles, no descriptive audio track. You sit there with your coffee on the couch and you watch The Mandalorian in your pajamas. And it's like, other than seeing Star Wars in the theater, this has to be the purest form of consuming Star Wars.
Exactly right. I sit at my PC. I want headphones on. I don't want to wake up my children too early. and I have to watch with the closed captions on. And let me just say, if at home, I think we've preached this before. Preached is the word. You have to consume this Star Wars with captions. There's so much stuff you pick up on, so much stuff you miss if you don't. Yeah.
No, it's vital to do the caption. I mean, there's a group of guys in here that we're going to talk about that you can't even understand what they're saying unless you're watching with the captions.
I don't know how
on.
you do this without captions.
It's got to be the first watch. It just feels purer to me because if I missed something, then that means that's a strike against it. I should be able to understand and absorb everything.
Yeah, the captions enhance what we're going to talk about in a major way, I think.
Yeah, they absolutely do. I think we should just get right into it. Let's rip the Band-Aid off, and we're going to talk to you guys about Season 3, Chapter 17, The Apostate. So this episode opens up on a nondescript planet, another desert planet, probably the 400th that we've seen in Star Wars.
Right.
But it's with a giant group of Mandalorians. There's a ton of them, and there's a young kid standing in a lake. And, Colin, my immediate reaction is, that's Din Djarin.
Right.
We see
flashback.
A helmet being forged. We see the armorer making a helmet, and you think this is a flashback, like you said, to Din Djarin getting his first Mando armor.
Yeah, they had to have done this on purpose, right?
Yeah, I think the fake out was definitely on purpose.
Yeah, and it has to do with water. So water's a major theme when it comes to the Children of the Watch. One of the really cool things you picked up on, I didn't, was the banners.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so when you see the procession come out to the kid,
it's a ceremony. Yeah,
assume is it's this is a sacrament. I mean, we know that the Mandalorian religion is what the Children of the Watch are practicing, the way of the Mandalore. And so, just as in any church in the world, as in the Christian church, this is a sacrament, and it's basically baptism. And so they're marching out in a procession with these banners, and you see the banner of the Mythosaur, which is just the catch-all Mandalore symbol. It's on Boba Fett's armor. It's everywhere. And then on the other banner, you see a branch with red leaves. And we talked about this in the live reaction. I'll just reiterate. That is the banner and the symbol of Clan Vizsla. So Paz Vizsla, Pre Vizsla, Tar Vizsla, it is their clan. And so the thing I noticed on the second watch through, though, is that there's numerous Mandalorians. I mean, the Children of the Watch seem to have grown in ranks since we last saw this.
Yeah.
And there are other banners there. There are five or six. They're all sideways. You cannot make out what is on them. But there are multiple banners there. And so we're pretty much free to assume that these banners are other clans. And so we already know that the clan structure still exists in the Children of the Watch because the Mudhorn clan, Din Djarin and Grogu's clan, is a clan of 2. And so not only is this the Vizsla symbol, which in our live reactions I thought meant the Children of the Watch are obviously directly descended from Death Watch. I still believe this now, but because of a different line of dialogue. Now I believe that this specific foundling was inducted into Clan Vizsla. I believe that maybe this was a foundling that Paz had found himself, or because they kept focusing on Paz. So I think that this kid is specifically inducted into Clan Vizsla.
Right, and later in this scene, Paz saves him.
Yes, he does.
Yeah,
in his own gruff kind of way, in the way that Paz acts.
Paz is huge. He's a monster. He has the most armor. He has the biggest gun. It's a huge deal because, they have. This is such a diverse group of Mandalorians, all different colors of armor, all different colors of weapons, different fighting styles. Some stay on the ground, some fly. It could be. Let's do an episode on just this scene, right?
Right. The last thing I'll say about that scene, that what kind of tipped me off into this not being Din Djarin's initiation, is that I didn't assume that Paz was that much older than him, and so Paz being there, I was just questioning it. I was like, I wonder, because also you see Din Djarin be saved by the Death Watch, and so him being inducted into the Children of the Watch would be weird, but. We're 2 years removed from scenes like that. We're 2 years removed from really being in the Mandalorian mindset. And so the fake out was there, and the fake out was good. And I really, really do think it was intentional.
Oh, yeah. And welcome to, it draws you in, especially with what happens next. And right after, what is it, the armor. I wish she had a name. but puts the moment she puts the helmet on the inductee,
The foundling.
the foundling, right, and he's about to utter the words, I swear to never take my helmet off. A dinosaur jumps out of the water. Literal. I mean, it's modeled off of I didn't look it up, but it's modeled off of it's a dinosaur.
Right.
And it eats a Mandalorian.
Immediately.
Immediately.
Cassidy's reaction was hilarious because she was like, did that just eat that kid? And it was, it's pretty visceral because it immediately does it, like you said. And I'm really, they use the volume a lot in The Mandalorian, but it looks to me like they must have filmed this on set in Florida because of the because of the way the dinosaur looks. But you're right. It's the scene served as something important, I think, in that it shows us also that Din Djarin's kind of the baddest Mandalorian out there because these guys are struggling. A lot of them are dying. They're not really putting a dent in this thing. And Din Djarin took out a crate dragon with just some Tusken Raiders and some, ballistas. And so Din Djarin's got a little secret sauce in him that these guys don't have.
Right. Yeah. So they were caught by surprise. They had no weapon that was a counter to this thing. They either didn't know it was there, or were totally unprepared for its existence.
My favorite was the Mandalorian who's shooting the flamethrower at it, totally selfishly, not doing anything to it except keeping it away from him.
Yeah,
he's just flamethrowering it to make sure it doesn't eat him.
Yeah, but the monster is impervious. They hit it with bombs. They're shooting blaster cannons at it. Paz Vizsla is. So two minor important things, like we just discussed, is at this point that Paz Vizsla knocks the foundling out of the way, and the armorer rescues another Mandalorian out of the water, and she gets knocked over by the animal, and the new foundling goes to rescue the armorer at this point. So it speaks to the camaraderie of this clan. It's not just some casual thing. They might have their different banners and stuff there, but they're there to help each other.
Yeah, they're a family. They believe that. And, this family might not be structured on love, but it's certainly structured on honor. And they fight for each other and vie for each other.
Right. Very cool scene. Hooks it, draws you into the whole show, gets you invested, all these other things. And Din Djarin comes in to save the day. The bamboo flute just pounds you in the ears.
I know.
And shoots this thing with a big volley of missiles, it looked like to me, and kills it straight up. Viscera everywhere.
Yeah, the just explosion of guts. And the N1 starfighter, I mean, you hear Din's music. These Mandalorians are on the ropes. Like, they're going to die.
Yeah.
This crocodile is going to kill most of everything that the Children of the Watch seem to have built up. And Din swoops in and saves the day. And that's what I'm saying, is he is the best Mandalorian at this time period. He's got it under control.
It's so cool to see this ship come in. And another thing is, he's in exile. They're not. The last time we saw the armor, they were on the ring world, right? Here they are in a cave somewhere. They didn't tell us. Could be on Tatooine. Could be on Jakku for all we know.
Right. We have no idea where this cave is.
I doubt it's on Jakku, right? There's no water there. But Din knows where they are. He saves the day.
Right. And so despite him being an apostate, he does come in and save the day and still save them. And that doesn't really mean anything for the Mandalorians. We don't see their reactions. We only see the next scene in where Din is talking with the armorer. And we see her reaction, but I can still imagine.
First
Paz
words out of her mouth is,
yeah.
You removed your helmet.
Yeah, exactly. and worse, willingly, which was an interesting little throw in there. But that scene is important because this is obviously a retelling of what happened in the Book of Boba Fett. It's, you took off your helmet, you're no longer a Mandalorian, you need to go to the Mines of Mandalore, and then we get a little bit of new information, which is Mandalore was glassed. We knew it was attacked and destroyed. We didn't know it was literally turned to glass.
Yeah, she says fusion rays or fusion beams, right?
Right. And so we see just a shard of glass from Mandalore proving that's what happened. And then we hear a line that really caught me, and the first mention of this, as far as I remember, in that Mandalore is poisoned. Not that, they've always said it was inaccessible, but I don't think they've ever identified why. Now it seems that they believe that the atmosphere or the ground or something on Mandalore is poisonous, and they're not able to go back.
Totally inhabitable.
Right, exactly. And so that was a really interesting just throw in there to add a little plot point that I didn't remember from anything else. But, that scene does all of its build-up, does all of its, this is what happened in the Book of Boba Fett. And then Din Djarin moves on. He's going to the Mines of Mandalore. He's going to just become better. But he has a mission. The Mandalorian is a tabletop RPG. We've known this. This episode really, really kind of hammered that home for me, though, in that it's always the next quest. The next quest. Like, oh, you got to get this thing, to do this thing, to do this thing, to do this thing, to get your ultimate goal, to then do this thing.
Right.
And I am not knocking it at all. It is awesome. It's a good concept. This is appropriate for this character. It fits Star Wars. This is not a complaint. It's actually praise that they're able to so willfully and perfectly fit in something basically like a tabletop RPG plot, smack into Star Wars, and make it super interesting.
Yeah, these are all hooks how they get you invested in the show, and I love them. We're going to talk a lot about all the different things as we progress, but man, it's fun. Another thing I want to mention just in these first parts here is that Grogu is prominently in this. He pops his head up from the little astromech hole in the N1. He saunters in. I say, you can't really tell, right? But I say he saunters in.
It is important to note that he is walking. I mean, that he's keeping up with people. Like, he's aged enough and grown enough in the Force, presumably, to be able to carry himself around, which is good. And that's not always, but it's good to see him doing that.
Yeah. And at one point, the armor, this also sets another tone, which we're going to talk about. Nobody believes that Din Djarin is going to be able to be redeemed. It's like an impossible task.
Right.
And the armor turns to look at Grogu and says, let me step back. The Mandalorian, Din Djarin, reiterates, if I go to these waters, I'll be redeemed. And the armorer looks at Grogu, and she looks back at Din and says, this is the way.
Isn't it interesting how in the scenes with all these Mandalorians, just through voice inflection and through blocking, we're really able to get a sense of what they're thinking and feeling with that emotionless mask.
Right.
I mean, Din is obviously, we've been able to feel his emotions the whole time, but even the armor, I mean, the timing of how long she looks at Grogu, how long she takes to answer Mando, at least to me, conveys a sense that she cares about Mando, she cares about Grogu, Grogu is a foundling, and that her consideration for even acknowledging that he can be redeemed is because of her relationship with these characters.
Right.
And all of that feels conveyed without the facial expressions. And I could be totally wrong, but that's the way I read the whole situation.
Yeah, it's exactly my point I was going to make. It's because of Grogu being there. This is an impossible task. If he hadn't done what he's done, saved them immediately before, beat Pre Vizsla in a duel, has the dark saber,
Paz Vizsla,
beat Paz Vizsla in a duel, has the dark saber, all these other things before that we've already seen in the past couple of seasons. She'd probably be like, "Good luck, buddy. Have a nice one."
Right, exactly. If one of those Mandalorians standing in the crowd took their helmet off, I don't know if the armorer would be so willing to try and help them rejoin the clan. But Din's done a lot for them. He's done quite a bit for them.
Right, and she knows he can accomplish impossible things. So this should be not a walk in the park, but a trial that he's going to accomplish. Right?
Yes. Well, in recent interviews, Jon Favreau has defined this season in one word, and that is through redemption. And I believe that has many meanings, not just for Din in the Mines of Mandalore. I think that there are a lot of perspectives and a lot of characters that single word is going to apply to.
Yes, exactly.
The very next thing is something that we have to talk about, and it's something that basically floored me because it's in the first 5 minutes of the show.
Right.
And it's something I didn't even think we would see in this show. I didn't think we would even get an acknowledgement. We might not have even gotten an acknowledgement of this in Ahsoka, or at least seen this on screen. And that is Grogu staring out in through the hyperspace tunnel and seeing creatures called Purrgil outside of that hyperspace tunnel. Many of them. And these guys are a creature that we're introduced to in Rebels. And Colin, why don't you tell folks a little bit about Purrgil from Rebels?
So, yeah, they're space whales. They can travel at hyperspace. In Rebels, they saved the day.
Right.
Do we want to spoil it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening to this and you haven't heard Rebels, and you haven't seen Rebels, skip 1 minute ahead. I mean, we're not going to dwell on this long.
So Thrawn, Grand Admiral Thrawn, is the primary antagonist in Rebels. And in the very last episode, in his personal Star Destroyer, Thrawn and Ezra Bridger are thrust to somewhere, which we're going to find out hopefully soon in November, with being dragged along by these Purgirls. And the Purgirls are a force, especially in Rebels, there's a lot of force animals. Wolves that we find out with Kanan Jarrus.
Right.
Who was the big one in the last episodes we watched, the Mandalorian episodes? I forget his name. He's a big tree mushroom.
Oh yeah,
character.
the Bendu.
The
and,
Bendu.
The Bendu is the one. So the Purgil fulfill the Bendu's prophecy, which Thrawn asks the Bendu, I can't remember his exact wording. It's basically, how will I be defeated, or what is my fate, or something like that. And the Bendu says, wrapped in thousands of arms.
Right.
And the Purgil have long tentacles that they wrap Thrawn in and eject to hyperspace.
Right. And so this is, Ezra Bridger has a special, and few Jedi, maybe more, have a special connection with force-sensitive animals or animals in general, right? And who else, that is, we immediately talk about, has a very special connection with animals and force animals? Grogu.
Right.
He sees these Purgil in these hyperspace tunnels, and Din Djarin looks asleep, right? And I think there's some sort of force, something going on. Like, are these Purgils guiding his way? Does he just notice them? Are they just there? Like, they're going the same way he is. There's 5 or 6 of these things it pans out to show us. But my goodness, we could do an episode. I'm going to repeat this. I'm sorry, because this episode of The Mandalorian is too important and too good to just skip over these things, right?
Right. It's, this episode is a big setup. I'm going to say they definitely play it safe in this episode. There's nothing, the Purgils are mind-blowing, but there's nothing that is like huge for the plot. We don't know how the Purgils are connected to the plot, especially if you're just a Mandalorian viewer. You're probably confused. And so we don't know exactly how they connect to the wider universe, but this episode plays it safe, but it's setting up so much for the future. I mean, it's, we could talk about 5 or 6 plot threads that have found themselves out in this episode.
Right. This I love watching stuff like this with people who are not as on a high level of fan as I am. And so like this comes on the screen and I react and people are like, why do you care about this? Why is this so important? Like, you don't understand. You want to grab him by the head and just shake him.
Right.
Like I've had this one. This is what happened with the Darksaber at the end of season 1. You fall out of your chair. Oh my gosh, it's the Darksaber. Here we are again in the first 5-10 minutes of this episode. Oh my gosh, Purgils.
Right. I mean, it's just, it really, I almost fell out of my chair, like you said, because I just did not expect it. I mean, I was a little groggy, drinking my coffee, first 5 minutes of the show. That woke me up, for sure.
Yeah.
So they travel through hyperspace, Grogu sees those, and then they arrive at Navarro, the planet we visited throughout the series, ran by our good friend Greef Karga. And on this planet, on Navarro, it's thriving. I mean, it is booming. The economy's there.
Town, yeah.
It's, we see just nice streets, droids talking about scenery on Navarro. It talks about it being the gem of the Outer Rim. There's a band playing of Twi'leks in the middle of town. There's a school.
Kids running around.
Kowakian monkey lizards in a tree. It's just a thriving place.
Lots of food hanging around.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Lots of food hanging around. It's everywhere. It's a really good, it shows us how much Navarro has thrived and how much the galaxy has changed in just a couple years. And after Mando was able to liberate Navarro from the Empire, what they were able to do with it.
Yeah. Out from under the thumb of oppression. Mando's walking around the town. I really love this. It reminds me of your Batu. You got all these people walking around. In our case, it's mostly humans because whatever. They can't employ that many actors at one time. But there are tons of aliens.
I know. Oh.
And like Grogu walks by a Mon Calamari and he kind of makes a face as best he can. And I mean, this dude just chilling, walking around Navarro.
Right.
It's really cool. It's so fun to see. And one of the coolest things is IG-11 droid with his rifle raised to the air. You know, he's a hero. He's a savior of Navarro.
Yes.
Destroyed a lot of the Empire contingent with a self-destruct. So there he is, enshrined at the center of town, right in front of the town hall, and Din Djarin is admiring this fantastic statue.
Yes.
And Grief Karga walks out with his two little. He and I'm gonna let you talk about this, but I have to say
You got to mention it. Yeah.
He's got his cape on, but it's being tailed by two droids. His little, what do you call this? Like a train keepers. There's some,
Right. Yeah, they're keeping his cape off the ground. I mean, they're hilarious. I mean, it's just, you know, Mando, I think, really understands Star Wars humor in that there's a lot of visual background things going on that are kind of funny. And then the way they deliver humor is very Star Wars. And this thing is just like, I don't even know if it was meant to be funny, but it's really funny. You see these little bitty droids.
They clank off the stairs.
Yeah, it's very, very funny. And I'd like to say on your alien point that, I mean, throughout the episode, it's a bunch of aliens. And I have to say, I loved Andor, and I liked Kenobi, and I was a fan of the Book of Boba Fett. But even the Book of Boba Fett was lacking in aliens. This is like if the characters from Jabba's Palace, Chalam's Cantina, and Maz Kanata's Castle directed an episode of Star Wars.
Correct.
Because of how many aliens and puppets and weird characters are just in the background or doing their thing there.
I'm so bad with all these intricate species names. What are the aliens in the tree? That was
Kowakian monkey lizards.
Kowakian monkey
The
lizards.
most famous of which is Salacious B. Crumb from the Return of the Jedi. He was Jabba's like pet/friend because they're sentient, but they're like totally content with just being court jesters. He was basically Jabba's court jester.
Yeah, that's hilarious. That's so funny.
It is. It's a great.
Salacious B. Crumb. Say it again for doofuses like me and the rest of our audience who might not know.
Kowakian monkey lizards.
Kowakian monkey lizards.
Yeah.
Very. Would you think they were CGI or puppets? This is important here.
It is important, and I haven't looked enough at the screen. I'm going to guess that they were CGI, but there's a lot of really good puppetry in the show.
Yes, and I will. That is your subject. I'm not touching with a 10-foot pole because it's so good.
It is good. They do a good job. And the IG, well, we'll get into it in a minute. That's also a puppet. But one of the things, this is going to be, you know, if Kowakian monkey lizards was kind of a nerdy nitpick, I'm about to deliver a real nerdy nitpick here. And that is, Grief Karga mentions offhand that they are now a Outer Rim trade route. They're on a main hyperspace lane. They are a spur of the Hydean Way. The Hydean Way is one of the 5 major trade routes that cut across the galaxy. If you look at a galactic map of Star Wars, it's always there. It's established thousands of years prior to this. But if you look at Navarro's placement on the galactic map, it is much, much closer to the Corellian trade spine, which is another hyperspace route. And so this is a really weird inclusion that why they would say the Hydean Way, because it's not far off, but there is a trade route that directly cuts it. So all I can guess is that it is he says it's a spur of the Hydean Way, so it must be this little off spur. But I just wanted to point that out, that I thought that was really peculiar. They chose that hyperspace route when there is one that Navarro's basically on the Corellian trade spine, if you look at a map.
That's strange.
It was odd.
Strange and totally nerdy to notice, but good job.
Right.
I really like this scene because Din Djarin, Grief Karga invites Din Djarin into his office, and it's opulent, and his clothing is very cool, and he's trying to offer Din Djarin some land. Straight up, I'm going to set you up down by the springs, primo stuff.
Right, exactly.
You know, he mentions that the traders are mining the asteroids. You know, this is a thing that we as humans hope to aspire to one day, and it makes it like you can see construction in the background of building these domes and silos and whatever else. And it's not, you know, in oil boom towns it gets real dirty, and I would think in mining towns it gets real dirty. This place is immaculate.
It's pristine, absolutely.
Yeah. So there, you can tell. I hope the Imagineers are trying to inspire. You know, this is how the correct way to build a town and marshal a town and do things in a town that aren't just like come here and start throwing money around, do whatever you want, all these other things.
No, you're absolutely right. The next little bit after he offers them the land is they're interrupted that there are pirates in the middle of town. So Grief and Mando go to address this issue. They come across some pirates in the middle of town trying to go drink inside a school that used to be a saloon. I'm sure it's the same school that we saw Grogu attend during Season 2.
Yeah, all of these pirates are aliens, and very well done alien. There's one Trandoshan,
A Quarren, a Klatooinian, what were the others? I'm trying to remember what the main guy's alien species was, and it's slipping my mind right now. Oh, continue talking about him, and I'll remember it in a moment.
So Vane is the main pirate's name, and they get into a heated discussion. And like we said, Grief is very opulent. He's wearing...
A Nikto. He's a Nikto.
There you go. Grief, he's wearing a mountain of clothes. I would not want to walk around in that costume. But
not without your little droid partners.
Yeah, I guess you're right. So the pirates are being very antagonistic. They want to drink in the school, and this is an alliteration to the checkered past of Grief Karga and what Navarro used to be. You know, this place was down and dirty. It was a very bad place.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it shows, the pirates don't think that Grief is grateful that saloon was funded by their boss, who they do name Gorian Shad, the Pirate King, which is a really interesting name. Gorian Shard.
Shard, yeah. And they basically are going to throw down right there. And the pirate pulls his pistol, and before he can get a shot off, Grief shoots the pistol out of his hand.
Yeah.
Very cool little scene.
It's, this is, the Mandalorian has always done this, and it just continues to show it's really sticking to Western roots. I mean, ruffians trying to get into a bar thing that used to be a bar, they call it a saloon, and, they're trying to go drink in there. Now it's a respectable school. I mean, this is straight out of a Western movie. This is straight out of a John Wayne movie.
Yeah. These guys, Favreau and Filoni, had to have watched Westerns and stuff when they're growing up.
Yeah,
seeing all this stuff.
They had to.
And 80s action movies. There's a point in here I'm going to mention, too. We've mentioned that a lot in The Bad Batch. It manifested itself here, too. So what happens next?
So, Mando, then they shoot his hand. Then the pirates try to counteract. Grief and Mando gun 4 of them down immediately. And it's not in cold blood. They're trying to kill these guys. I mean, they're drawing weapons on them. And so they kill the 4 of them. They leave Vane alive and tell him to get out of there, go tell his boss that this is a respectable place now. I mean, again, straight out of a Western.
Yeah, and it's got to be noted again here that this guy, 5 pirates showed up, one of them is leaving, and as Grief and Mando are walking away, he tells his droid attendant, take care of these guys. They're trash to him.
Right,
and Mando's like, are you sure you want to let him leave? Oh, yeah. This is to send a message that this place is clean. This place is stand up. We don't want scum and villainy here at all.
No, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what the message is. And then something really interesting is Mando gets offered the job of Marshal. And, you would be thinking after you saw the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, well, Cara Dune is the Marshal. This is explained that, Cara Dune is off in Special Forces. Once they turned Moff Gideon in to the New Republic, he was sent off to a New Republic tribunal. We learned that from this line of dialogue. And Cara Dune was recruited by Special Forces for the New Republic. So Navarro is without a marshal.
Yeah, and I'm going to really miss that Cara Dune character. She was phenomenal. Strong female character, and she didn't have anything about her, if you ask me. I would really love to have seen more of her, so that's a real shame she's not going to be in this. I really don't care. I like Juan Carlo Esposito, but I'm not going to miss him in this. Maybe he might come back, maybe not, But who's going to be the marshal? Grief asks Din to be the marshal, and he would make a good one, right? Because
he's an
apostate, setting him up with the prime land, all this other thing. And it really would be a good place for him and Grogu to settle down and do all these other things.
Right. No, I mean, Navarro would be, despite what we know is coming to the galaxy, like the First Order, this would be a safe place for them to just dwell and be. But Mando is not about that. He wants to be redeemed. But this scene got me thinking, we saw a confirmation that Boba Fett is going to be back in this series. We're going to see him at some point. But there's another character at the end of the Book of Boba Fett. It's the little cliffhanger at the end of Book of Boba Fett.
Right.
Cobb Vanth is being rebuilt. And I think that the perfect way to get Cobb Vanth back into this is maybe make him the Marshal of Navarro. I mean, he doesn't need to be the Marshal of Freetown now that Boba Fett's the daimyo of Tatooine. He's keeping it safe. He's got it locked down.
Yeah, that's right. No more spices being run through Freetown anymore. So that would be great. I hope. We know we're getting Cobb Vanth back. You know, Disney hope doesn't do this stuff lightly, right? These credit scenes and all that. So let's see it. I hope it comes to pass.
Right. So, and then in the same breath of dialogue, we learn, Din's like, why not just get someone from the New Republic? They would willingly give you a security force. And the New Republic is no more respected than the Old Republic was on the Outer Rim. I mean, Watto wouldn't take New Republic credits. I don't know if these guys take New Republic credits or not, but we can clearly tell by this dialogue. Navarro wants to be independent, and the New Republic's kind of a joke. I mean, they say they give Moff Gideon over to a New Republic tribunal, and you can't see under the helmet, but basically Din rolls his eyes. I mean, he rolls his head like this. That's ridiculous. Like, that doesn't mean anything, is what they think.
Yeah. Very good points here. So immediately after, Din wants his friend, the IG-11, back. And he is met with disbelief and shock. You know, and I was kind of weirded out. Like, you're going to take their little savior, their centerpiece of their town?
Right.
He's going to go be your friend again? That's really cool, which sets up the quest thing like you're talking about.
Right. Well, I get why Din wants that droid. He doesn't trust droids. That was a point that felt a little dropped in Season 2. That's been revived a little bit, and so he doesn't trust droids for very important reasons, that he was attacked by a bunch as a child, but he trusts this one because of the sacrifice that IG-11 made for him. I want to point out, though, that in the recap, and at the end of Season 1, we see how IG-11 sacrifices himself, and that's with a thermal detonator in the middle of his chest. Why are we supposed to believe that his chest and his head were the parts that survived that explosion?
Right.
I mean, obviously, it's for the plot. It's not a big deal, but that was a little thing that I was like, that's weird.
It's a cone-shaped charge. Jumped out of his chest and got everything in front of him.
Right, exactly. So they go to repair it, Din does, in Greef Karga's office, and they get it running, but it's reverted to its old program, and it's trying to kill Grogu.
Yeah, it barely slashes him with his hand or grabs him with his hand, jumps off the table with its one arm.
In some good puppeteering. This is one of the good puppet scenes.
Yes, excellent. And Din can't seem to hit a vital part with his blaster. He tosses Grogu to Greef across the room like a little green football.
Right.
And as the assassin droid is crawling across the room, the protocol droid, in an act of fratricide, tosses a bust on the ground and hits it in the head and deactivates it.
Yes. And I've got to say, maybe the worst line of dialogue delivered in all the Mandalorian right here.
What was it?
Is Din is a really funny character, okay? I think that the way he delivers comedy is usually really good, but he makes an absolute dad joke, and it's out of character, and he says, now that's using your head.
So this is the 80s movies just jumping off the screen. This was the trope back in the day. Commando, Mandalorian being the big thing. Arnold Schwarzenegger made jokes like this constantly, delivered the exact same way. If we were on a YouTube channel, I'll be playing you clips right now.
Right.
But
see, that's what I think. I also think that, Din is a dad, so it's a little excusable, but not that excusable. That was probably my least favorite part.
I am a dad, and by gosh, I was laughing.
Right. So we see Din is not capable of reviving IG-88 by himself. And so he's got to go to get some help, and the people that he gets help from, look, I'm going to say
George Smiths in the galaxy.
This is my favorite Glup Shitto. I said it in the live reaction. The Anzellans, which is Babu Frick species from the Rise of Skywalker. Babu Frick is one of the funniest Star Wars characters. He's my favorite Glup Shitto, and the species does not disappoint in any way. He goes to these droid smiths. They're little like Babu Frick. I mean, they're smaller than Grogu. And so they're working on the droid. Their tiny hands are good at manipulating these things. And the whole scene is comedy from beginning to end. From the way they talk to the way Grief Karga and Mando are interacting. The whole thing is laugh out loud funny. Maybe top 10 Star Wars comedy moments for me.
Yeah, and another thing that's hilarious is they live in a little den, like in a. They stand in a window. And what did you say? What you want?
Yeah. What do you want?
What do you want? And then it immediately cuts to IG-88 in their little den, and Mando is just sitting there
On the ground.
with Grogu in the thick of it, trying to just observe it. I guess whatever he does.
Right.
And he's in there. He had to have crawled through the hole.
I know. And then Grogu gets this Anzellan, wraps him up, and is squeezing him. And the
No squeezy.
No squeezy. And he's, what a bad baby. Very bad baby. And Mando is just so apologetic. He's like, I'm sorry. He's a kid. Like, you got to forgive him. It's really funny stuff.
Yeah, the Anzellans are super cute. I can't wait to get my kids to watch this. I tried on my second watch through. I brought my son home for lunch, and I'm like, this is really funny. You need to see this. He was not interested at the moment.
Right.
The kid who sleeps on a Grogu pillow who didn't want to watch it. Who knows, right? Well, but the way the Anzellans talked, this is where the subtitles come in. You could understand them pretty well. But broken. He's broken. It was hilarious.
It is funny. And with it being broken, they deliver Din's next side quest, what he's got to do. You got to get this done to get this done to get this done. And they're saying there's no memory chip in IG-11. It's destroyed. You got to go get him a new memory chip. They're hard to find. And that's the delivery. And so where do we think Din's going to go to get this memory chip? Because I have a pretty good hunch.
Dr. Aphra is going to show up.
Oh, my.
He's going to buy one off of her.
I think he'll go straight to Pelimoto, and I think that will be where he finds that. I think we're doing the check-in. We're going to see all of Din's friends in this episode. I think that's going to continue into next episode. We'll go see Pelimoto. We'll go see Boba Fett. We'll kind of get the, check-in with everyone that Din knows.
Right. Yeah, it'd be fun to see Boba Fett in the next episode and the droid smiths and all that. That'll be really neat.
Well, he cannot visit Tatooine without seeing Boba Fett, and because of the trailer, we know that he visits Tatooine.
Right.
So, but anyway, I think that's probably where it's headed. But this is his next quest, and so that's very important. And he takes off from Navarro after this. He knows what he's got to do, so he's leaving.
Yeah, and so these next scenes set up probably minor antagonist within the whole thing. Din Djarin is being a dad to Grogu, teaching him about how the ship operates, pointing out all the different aspects, hyperspace, fuel, all this. And immediately as he points out the radar, up comes 3 pirates. It's Vane and 3 more buddies. And they're back for more. I'm sitting there thinking, the guy who just smoked 4 of my friends, I'm not going to touch with a 10-foot pole.
Right.
Not doing it. And then what proceeds to happen? 3 more pirates show up, just as a small detail. But all of them die too, except for Vane. Vane's got some really good plot armor on. Leads him to Pirate King Captain. Gosh, these egotistical doofus pirates, a.k.a. Swamp Thing. Vane delivers Din Djarin to his... Is this a captured Imperial cruiser, you think?
Yeah,
It's got some Imperial...
a look about it.
Right.
So this is Gorian Shard's ship, the Pirate King. And I want to back up just a second that the Starfighter battle is really good with the pirates.
Fantastic.
This is another showcase of the N1's capabilities, but the best part is the way they scored this. The music, Din is fighting like he fought in the episode of season 1 where they're on the prison transport and he's using the shadows. This is how he's fighting with his N1. I mean, he's darting in and out of asteroids. He kills one pirate, and by the time they realize it, he's gone. And the music surges every time he kills somebody, and then it goes back. And then he shoots someone again, and it bum, and then it goes back. And so it was just a really good musical showcase right there. But for Gorian Shard's ship, this is actually a really interesting question, because this ship has shown up in the old Legends stuff in an old comic called Dark Empire. In Dark Empire, it was a prototype Star Destroyer. Now, Gorian Shard's ship is much smaller than a Star Destroyer, so we're not led to believe that it is a prototype Star Destroyer, but the design from Dark Empire is certainly what inspired Gorian Shard's ship.
Yeah, I think it looked fantastic. It had tiger stripes on it, seemingly. It had a bunch of guns. It immediately gets a target lock onto an N1 starfighter, which I would think in universe would not be an easy task.
Right. Its hangar is like it's similar to the New Republic or to the Old Republic cruisers during the Clone Wars.
Yeah, in the
where
center.
they deploy from the top and it's in the center, but it's like it's more shallow. It's a really cool design.
Holds a lot fewer. And I think if you look hard, you can see Gorian Shard in the elevated bridge that all the Imperial ships have.
And I'm excited about Gorian Shard's character because it's a species we've never seen before. He looks really good. You know, this interaction was short. He threatens to kill Din, says he wants to take his ship and he won't kill him. Din tells Grogu, don't trust a pirate, because he knows that's a lie. They would have just killed Din anyway. And Din zips away in the N1.
Yeah, hits the turbo button.
Yeah,
he
has the nitrous
loving
under the
it.
hood.
Grogu, if you watch the subtitles, Grogu's giggling the whole time.
Right. And they can't hit him, and Gorian Shard just looks so angry. And so in the trailers, we see Navarro being attacked, and some Mandalorians dropping in from drop ships. We can assume that this is a Gorian Shard attack on Navarro now, and that Din is commanding some Mandalorians to go help. So
that's an awesome insight.
He must get redeemed, I think, probably early in the season. Because as we've seen, this episode probably covers 75% of the trailer, and most all of the trailers we've seen released for any Star Wars show, the show is covered in the trailer is covered in the first 2 or 3 episodes.
Right. We see in the trailer Sundari too. So
yes,
it's coming right up.
Yep, exactly.
Which we know by this episode too.
Yes, exactly. And so that fight with Gorian Shard, then they jump to hyperspace, and now they're on another planet. So we visit a lot of places in this. We interact with a lot of characters, and in this one we see Kalevala, which is a really crazy thing that I did not expect, because Kalevala has only ever been mentioned by Duchess Satine Kryze from the Clone Wars episodes, and if you want to hear about that, you can check out our special number 4, where we were live at LubbockCon talking about the history of Mandalore before The Mandalorian. And Kalevala is a planet or moon in the Mandalorian system that is where Satine Kryze is from, where Bo-Katan, her sister, is from, and it's this luscious planet with a Mandalorian castle in it. And I was just surprised we got it. We've seen a lot of the Mandalorian system throughout just Star Wars in general. I think we've seen 4 or 5 planets so far in the Mandalorian system.
Planets and moons. And this one is especially nice. That castle is really cool looking. All these important characters have castles, right? Darth Vader,
right,
Bo-Katan, or the Kryze family, the Kryze clan, maybe, however you want to put it. And I like castles myself. I like building Legos and all that other stuff. So I really like, and Din is explaining this to Grogu the whole time. It's not just some words pop up on the screen or anything like that. He's being a dad. You could probably flip it around his head as being like some sort of narrator syndrome or something like that. I wouldn't read that too much into it. But, I mean, because I want to know where we're at. I want to know what he's doing there. But, yeah, Din goes he's just like strolling up. It's Din Djarin. Bo-Katan, it's Din Djarin. I want to join you.
Right. Oh, and I want to say one thing about this scene is that when they land, this is when it really hit me that they designed the N1 really well, because Grogu has so much mobility throughout the ship. He can be in the astromech pod. He can be under the astromech pod and not be seen. There's a place for him to go underneath that and pop up into Din's cockpit, and then his bassinet pops out the bottom. Because one of the things, honestly, I thought about when they put the N1 on screen is like, we're never going to see them actually get out of that thing physically, because they're not going to want to show Din lifting Grogu out of the top of that thing every time. Like that would just be a weird inconvenience. And so they cleaned that up really well.
Yeah. All the different mobility options for Grogu is really cool. The bassinet is fun to watch, and he's not just strolling around. And how it can close up and protect him, that's neat.
Right. So, like you said, Din saunters into the castle, says, I want to join you. Bo-Katan is flippant about this. She says, you have the Darksaber, you lead them. And this seems to be the first time in her history that we've seen Bo-Katan give up.
Yeah, she's dejected.
Yeah.
She's probably tired. She's in her 50s or 60s. And she was pursuing that Darksaber. She was trying to stop Moff Gideon, still, do what she does, get after it, right? Be the Mandalorian that she's always been, and she's not able to confront Moff Gideon. Instead, Din Djarin does. And so this is the continuation of that years later, right? Which we found out.
Right.
So now here's the guy who took her chance away. He's the one who got first place at the pageant show.
Yeah. And honestly, I still believe Bo-Katan was a reluctant leader. We see this throughout Rebels and the Clone Wars. She doesn't want to lead Mandalore. She tries to get Sabine to lead because her first leadership after she was installed after Darth Maul was defeated was, it failed really fast because of the Empire. And so I still think Bo-Katan is a reluctant leader, but now she's just done. She has given up, and that is out of her character. She also delivers the line, "Your cult gave up on Mandalore long before the Purge," and long is emphasized. And so this is the line that makes me think that they are direct descendants of Death Watch, because long before the Purge, before the Purge means Rebels, because it happens not long after Rebels. We don't know when it happens, but we know it doesn't happen very long afterwards. Has to have happened before a year after Return of the Jedi. So there's a 4-year time period. During the original trilogy is when they glassed Mandalore.
Right.
And so this delivery of that line, to me, is pretty much a firm indicator that when Death Watch when Satine Kryze was killed and Bo-Katan refused to bow down to Maul and allow him to sit on the throne, the Death Watch members that stayed following Maul, Gar Saxon and his ilk, I believe they are the predecessors to the Children of the Watch.
Yeah, or some other faction thereof.
Yes, it may be some other faction thereof, but I really do think that connection, the word watch, the knobs on the armorer's helmet, Paz Vizsla being a part of this group, I really do believe that this is where the connection is going to lead, is that during the Clone Wars and the Siege of Mandalore, or right before the Siege of Mandalore during the 3-episode arc, Eminence is where we see the split.
Do you think we're going to ever find out in this season or when these revelations, our speculations, come true?
I honestly do think it's this season, because I think this season they're going to have to coalesce against the greater threat of the Empire, and this is where I think this season will be where Din divorces from the Children of the Watch, or where Bo-Katan and the other Mandalorians are reunited with the Children of the Watch under a new kind of reformed Mandalorian way. You don't have to take your helmet off, but you got to do these things, and the power of the Mines of Mandalore may actually be real, and things like this. I think there will be, the end of this season, I'm predicting we see a more united Mandalore.
Yeah, so to build on that, we're going to find out what makes these living waters so special. Bo-Katan says, "You're joking. That's a joke. You're. What does she say?
She says you're a fool.
You're a fool." But that's one side of a coin. The armorer's like, this is the only way you can be redeemed. So there's something to this place that we're going to find out. There's going to be a force animal there. Grogu's the key, if you ask me, somehow.
Right. No, I think you're right.
And this is a seed that's been, something's going to come together that's probably been building that we not even fathom. That is a brainchild of Favreau and Filoni, and we're going to get to see it this season.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. The show ends with Bo-Katan just calling him a fool, and he says he's going to do it anyway. She mentions that it's underneath the Civic Center in Sundari, and I think that's important just so we know that Din's going back there. We see that in the trailer. And then the show kind of abruptly ends. It is a short episode. It's not the shortest Mandalorian episode. There are other shorter ones, and it's not abnormally short. There's many episodes in the 30-minute range, but it's a 35-minute episode. So they cram a lot of exposition into this little bit of time.
Yeah, and Bo-Katan won a butthead to him. She was nice. "Goodbye, Din Djarin," she says at the end.
I don't know. I felt like that was more sarcastic, but yeah, you're right. She is just totally dejected. And I think, obviously she's coming back. We've got Katie Sackhoff as a co-star along Din Djarin's name. It's Din Djarin, Carl Weathers, and Katie Sackhoff are the 3 listed actors. And so, they're the main guys. They're going to be in every episode or almost every episode.
Yeah.
And one of the episodes is, I think it's episode 4, is directed by Carl Weathers.
Oh, nice.
And so that's got to be the big Grief Karga episode. He's going to make some kind of sacrifice, or there's going to be some kind of big
he's going to
character
come out
development.
on top.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And reinforce that Navarro is really the gem of the Outer Rim.
Yes, yeah. I think there's something special about Navarro, not like the Force or to Mandalorians, but I think that Navarro is going to cement itself as a very important planet in the Star Wars lore. You know, it might not be Tatooine, but it's going to be an important place. I mean, we've already visited it more than we visited nearly any planet in Star Wars. I mean, Coruscant, Tatooine, Naboo, those all rank higher. But other than those, I really think that we're visiting Navarro a lot.
There's very few outside some of the cartoons, right?
Right.
But yeah, so that's the episode. Thrill ride to me. Pearl Girl's number 1 for me. Space Battle number 2. Setting up all these cool characters. The Anzellans. So much fun stuff. I want to see IG-11 again. Very cool things.
You know, we talked about already all the aliens and the questing and just the vibe of The Mandalorian in general. And The Mandalorian, to me, it is just the original trilogy captured in a bottle. If you like the original trilogy, but specifically if you're like me and Return of the Jedi is your favorite, this show has Return of the Jedi vibes. If you don't like Return of the Jedi for whatever reason, you probably don't like The Mandalorian, because the lowest lows The Mandalorian ever experiences are about as dark as the throne room scene in Return of the Jedi. And, you know, like Andor gets way darker than that. Not to say that Andor isn't great Star Wars, but Andor doesn't have the original trilogy, like, mystique. And, you know, there's great high highs in The Mandalorian. The celebration at the end of the first season mimics the celebration for Return of the Jedi. Like, the happiness you feel for them is the same that you feel at the end of Return of the Jedi. The comedy feels the same. The questing, every quest he goes on feels like Luke Skywalker's plan to rescue Han in the whole first act. I mean, it's just The Mandalorian, it obviously begins taking place 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and it is just, it's the literal successor and the spiritual successor to Return of the Jedi, and I think that's why it's so successful, because it's captured the feeling of the original trilogy more than any other Star Wars product has since the original trilogy.
Yeah, and to build on that, I think a little bit, is these characters we know who they are, they're developed, which is the exact same thing you can say about Return of the Jedi. We know they're going to deliver, we know cool things are going to happen, the expectations are high, and we get our fantasies fulfilled.
And they're able to do it with basically a whole new cast. I mean, other than Luke Skywalker, every character in the show was created in the 2000 teens and on. Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, I guess Ahsoka's in 2008, but the 2000s on. And they are able to still recapture that magic without any of the original trilogy characters. And yeah, Luke's in it. Luke isn't a Mandalorian character. I mean, he's a cameo, and it's a good cameo, but Luke isn't the reason it has that feeling. Luke helped in the episodes he's in, but the feeling was there and is there without any support from the original trilogy. It's very impressive.
Yeah, very good points.
So, you know, Colin, that wraps up our coverage of this episode of The Mandalorian. You guys are going to need to stick with us for 7 more weeks. Every week when it comes out, we're going to be premiering this on Wednesday night. We want y'all to join us. We want y'all to, you know, engage with us on all of these ideas. You can talk to us about it in DMs on Instagram or Twitter or Discord. You can check those links out in the bio of this. We love talking about this. And I'm sure we didn't cover everything. I'm sure we didn't catch everything. I'm sure you guys caught stuff that we haven't. So come let us know. We want to talk about it. We want to mention it on the next show. Oh, hey, so-and-so reminded us that we didn't catch this. This is a really good point. And so it's been a fun ride, and I'm really excited to get into the rest of The Mandalorian.
Yeah, very excited. What's the next episode is, what about you think? They're going to...
Well, let's talk about this right now on the HoloNet News.
You made the HoloNet.
So, Colin, you just alluded to it. Our very first story for the HoloNet News segment is that we have the name and the runtime for the next episode. Chapter 18, The Mandalorian, is called The Mines of Mandalore, and it's 42 minutes long.
Cool. And so IG-11 is going to come back, presumably, right? He doesn't want to go down there. So that's going to happen in part of the episode. And I hope it doesn't end where they get to the mines. I hope we actually see something happen down there. I can't wait to see Mandalore. I can't wait to see Sundari. It's too much to hope for a flashback to the Night of 1,000 Tears, I think, outside of what we've already seen with the bombers flying over, right? But, that requires its own miniseries, I think.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I'd like to tell you that I'm going to put on my Yoda ears for a second, and I'm going to predict the entire plot of the next episode.
Let's hear it.
With knowing the title, The Mines of Mandalore, and knowing that they traditionally only show parts of the first, second, and maybe third episodes in the trailer, I'm going to say that the opening is Din Djarin and Grogu travel to Tatooine to get the part for IG-11 from Pelimoto. Something small happens on Tatooine, or it's a holiday, because we see fireworks in these scenes. So they're celebrating something on Tatooine. It's 42 minutes, so that's the first third. That's the first act. The second act is traveling to Navarro. Something probably happens with the pirates on Navarro. This probably doesn't get resolved. I'm not calling a resolution of the pirate conflict, but there's something added to the pirate conflict. Then IG-11 gets repaired quickly. I don't think they're going to dwell on that long. And then
not with the Anzellans in the mix.
Yeah, you're right. And then the end of the episode will be Din and Grogu and IG-11 arriving above Mandalore space. And that's how the episode will end. Now, my one problem with my prediction is I don't know how IG-11 gets there, because there's no space in that ship for 3 people.
It gets packed in the trunk.
Yeah. And so I don't know how he gets there, but that's my only quibble, is that I can't figure it out. But I think the episode ends that way, because I think the beginning of episode 3, Din's going to be redeemed, and the redemption arc is kind of a red herring. I think that that's going to be resolved quickly, and that's how we see Din commanding Mandalorian forces in the subsequent episodes. We see him comfortably around other Mandalorians in the other episodes, and we probably see Bo-Katan back. And the final 5 episodes of the series will be dealing with the pirate/Imperial threat.
Excellent. I can't wait to see it. I hope you're right.
And, that's just a wild guess, but that's my Yoda prediction. Got to stick the ears on for it. But
yes,
that's
sir.
That's what I think is going to happen.
What's next?
So the next little piece of news is, people said that this show was going to break the internet. I did not think it was going to break the internet 24 hours before it came out. In an interview with the Sky Talkers podcast, Jon Favreau says that there were many years that passed during Mandalorian Season 1 and 2. Acceptable enough answer. I see absolutely nothing wrong with this. That there was a few years. I mean, what, did we think that all of this happened in a couple days?
Yeah, come on.
I think that the passing of time there, but then he says that Grogu spent 2 years with Luke Skywalker. And this raised a lot of eyebrows. And I gotta say, I trust Favreau and Filoni, but that was a weird comment, because that really makes some character decisions kind of odd. Like, why did Boba Fett take so long to, be daimyo and to take over Mos Espa and do all of this? Why was Din Djarin using public transportation for 2 years? Like, things like that. And so, some of the Book of Boba Fett episodes definitely took place over long periods of time. They didn't build the N1 in a day. But Jon Favreau has since corrected his comments somewhat. And so it's a little, when you're a Star Wars writer or producer or anyone, you've got to be really precise about your comments, because fans are rabid.
Yeah, rabid.
And so he kind of clarified it, and someone walked up to him and was like, "Hey, you broke the internet today." He was like, "Oh, what'd I do now?" And they said, "You said that Grogu was with Luke for 2 years." And Jon Favreau's eyes kind of go wide, and he's like, "Oh, crud." And so then he says, "Well, it's pretty similar to how long we were away from Grogu, which was 1 year." And then he goes, "So it's probably 0 to 2 years." And so we still don't have a firm time frame, but Jon Favreau at least has it in his head that it's somewhere between 0 and 2. That's comfortable enough. I believe that they're going to explain it. I don't think that's going to be a problem. People are all like, "Well, nothing happened in 2 years?" Like, I mean, kind of. You're right. Like, Din probably went on some good bounty hunts, but he's not like a wanted man. The Empire is gone. He's obviously a hero to the New Republic for capturing Moff Gideon. He's got friends all over the place.
Yeah, and it takes money to do what Din does. You don't get to fly around in a brand new in a refurbished N1 Starfighter for free just because some squirrely-haired lady likes your little kid, your green little kid, and like maybe his insurance came in. What was his other ship?
The Razor Crest.
Maybe his insurance came in on the Razor Crest, and he just like, you know what? I don't have to wear my helmet for now. I want to go to a beach and hang out.
Yeah, you're right. And so it's excusable. We don't know. I mean, people have always argued, how long did Luke spend on Dagobah during The Empire Strikes Back? Because it feels like Han and Leia were in the asteroid belt for a day, but it feels like Luke was on Dagobah for weeks. And so questions like that, I do not like the excuse that, the Star Wars timeline is always convoluted. We've got firm times for important things, and so we should always have firm times for important things. So that excuse is not okay. But the excuse that the original trilogy did not indicate time jump between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. That's something you gotta learn later from some source material. You walk up to some random person in Walmart who has seen all the Star Wars movies and is like, oh yeah, I love Star Wars. Baby Yoda's awesome. And you say, well, did you know that between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back takes place 3 years? They're going to say, okay, and then push their shopping cart away from you.
Right.
Because they don't care.
So if Grogu is with Luke Skywalker for a significant amount of time, I have a 5-year-old son. Teaching him stuff isn't easy at all. And I would almost imagine that teaching a very young Force user is very similar to Mr. Miyagi style teaching of karate.
Right.
Wax on, wax off. Like, you're not just going to be like, here's your lightsaber, go start whacking heads.
Yeah.
For one, Jedi aren't going to do that, but proverbially, right? We just get to see him jumping around. There's a lot of fundamentals of the Force that these very young children back in the sequels and that we saw in all the comic books and other media, they spent years in indoctrination. They didn't learn their ABCs. They learned their ABCs of the Force, how to get in tune with this thing, how to do all this other stuff. And we see in this episode, Grogu just used it casually to snatch up a space M&M off of Grief Kargas. And it's just, he does that just like we pick up a pen or a pencil.
And he's not getting tired anymore when using the Force. He obviously does when he deals with the Rancor, but that's a huge task for a baby.
Right.
And Grogu has grown significantly in the Force since this has happened. And so 2 years makes sense for him to have grown as much as he has in the Force. And the final thing I'll say on this is the original trilogy gave us no time jump indications. The prequels gave us haircuts as time jump indications. And Navarro has changed dramatically. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was Navarro.
Yeah, that's years of development there. It's not because nothing was casual in Navarro. Paved streets.
It had a saloon for pirates, and it was a disgusting, mine-stained place that was run down. And now it is immaculate.
Bustling, yeah. It's bustling boomtown.
Exactly. So this people being torn out of shape over this is a little silly to me. But we'll travel to the next piece of HoloNet news, and that is there's a new Star Wars comic crossover coming this summer. All of the Star Wars comics, not all of the Star Wars comics, but many of the Star Wars comics being published right now are set between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, which is kind of interesting because that is a 1-year timeline, and this is their 4th crossover event that they're putting in there. It's a crossover between Darth Vader, Star Wars titled comic book, Star Wars Bounty Hunters, and Dr. Aphra. The only thing we know about this is that the very first line, or the only line provided, the tagline for it is, "First it comes for the medal." And we don't know what that means at all. And so Colin, you're a bigger Star Wars comic book reader than me. You might not be up on the most recent issues, but you read Star Wars comics pretty frequently. So are you excited for this event?
Yeah. Darth Vader, of course. I need to read all the Bounty Hunters. And Dr. Aphra are the ones I paid attention to the most. Probably the ones I like the most from what I've heard of the Bounty Hunter stuff. I like all the main Star Wars characters. But the first one I remember is Vader Down. If this is delivered with the same quality, I'm all for it.
Right, yeah, Vader Down was superb. And it's had its ups and downs. For avid comic Star Wars readers, I've heard things about, the War of the Bounty Hunters not being amazing, but Crimson Reign and Crimson Empire being very, very good. And so this could be great or not so great, but it's exciting that they're continuing the crossovers. And we're going to get branch out comics eventually outside of these eras. And we already do. We have mini series. The only ongoing series are set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And I'd really like to get inside Lucasfilm / Marvel / Disney's head and figure out what the justification is for dwelling so long in this story period. Do you think it's trepidation that they just want to write what they know, or they just want to write what they know sells, or that they have plans for all the other timeline sections?
It has to do with Disney wants to focus on new content. They don't want to do stuff with old characters, Luke, Leia, Han, and Vader. This is the only way that we can get new content, because of all the writers and artists out there are passionate about making content. They make supreme quality content, if you ask me, in these comic books. And it's the medium in which they can thrive the most in putting these characters in different environments and different situations that deliver the most to the reader without having to convince some executive at Lucasfilm or Disney World to say, look, people really like this stuff. They want more of it. And I think that's what it is, if you ask me.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. So it's exciting that we're getting this new comic crossover. So our final piece of HoloNet news is another little piece of TV news, and that's The Acolyte is a Star Wars show centered on dark side users that we're probably going to be getting early next year, and it hasn't wrapped up filming yet. It did start principal production a few months ago, but they have just added a new director, Garcia Lopez, and Garcia Lopez has a pretty good track record. He directed The Witcher, which was an extremely popular TV series. Well, get this. You love these other shows even more. He directed Netflix's The Punisher.
Oh, my gosh.
And he directed parts of Daredevil on Netflix.
Oh, my gosh. Well, and they brought those shows into the fold in Disney. Aren't they remaking Daredevil, too?
They are remaking Daredevil right now.
Daredevil
or
as well?
sequeling or something.
Yeah.
They're tying it in somehow.
Yeah, so, man, Punisher is one of my favorites, especially that version that was on Netflix. I can't wait to see these. That lends a lot to what this Acolyte's going to be.
Yeah, because The Acolyte, we've seen some leaked photos, and the plot sounds really exciting, but we don't know a lot about its production. And this really does kind of breathe a sigh of relief into the fact that Acolyte's coming, and that it's probably going to be pretty good with this director on the hook here.
Yes, very excited. I've heard of the upcoming shows. I've never heard of a dark side show. I'm so glad they're doing a dark side show. That's what I've heard amongst some of my friends being spoken about. It's going to be fun to see.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think you're right. People are really excited about the concept of a dark side show. With that little piece of news, that wraps up our HoloNet news segment. For you new listeners, we're going to jump right into our Star Wars Moment of the Week. The Star Wars Moment of the Week is where Colin and I just share a couple minutes about something we did this week that involved Star Wars that was not watching The Mandalorian or watching whatever we're talking about on this week's podcast. And so, Colin, why don't you tell me about your Star Wars Moment of the Week?
We would be honored if you would join us.
Yeah, this is a really good one. We went down to the Lubbock Con, and we did a live broadcast of our podcast there. Also there was the 501st Legion and Rebel Legion, and we attended a panel on costuming for Star Wars. These, you just don't go buy a Hasbro helmet and put it on and say, I'm a this, or you can, they don't care. But to troop with these guys are extremely lofty when it comes to dressing as a Star Wars character, whatever you want. And so the panelist, I wish I knew his name so I could give him a shout out here. I'm so sorry. Gave me a specific shout out. You would make a good Cobb Vanth. That has stuck in my head every moment. And so for me, when I first think of Cobb Vanth, is Timothy Oliphant. Timothy Oliphant is one of my most favorite actors. He's been in a lot of things. He was Hitman. He was in one of the Bruce Willis movies, Live Free or Die Hard or something like that, as the antagonist. But my most favorite, they're doing a resurgent of a show called Justified. It's a TV show based off of a literary work, and the writing in that is phenomenal. And so the Cobb Vanth character feels like a transplant of Timothy Oliphant's Marshall Raylan Givens, Marshall, right, being the key word, from that TV show. You know, real smooth talking, gunslinger, very in a positive orientation with the law. You know, we see Cobb Vanth, he didn't want any spies run through his town. But what's so cool about this, I got into researching the costume, is like the first we see him, Din Djarin's after his armor that he got from the Jawas. And it's Boba Fett's armor. And it's distressed more than it was because it survived some time in a Sarlacc pit, right? And but what's cool about this is a person can cosplay Cobb Vanth as an armored character. And so, but you're not a Mandalorian, so you don't got to follow the Mandalorian rules. You know, if you're a child of the Watch, guess what? In this 501st, I bet you can't take your helmet off.
Yeah, I bet
but
you're
if
right.
if you're one of Bo-Katan's little people who run around with her, you can do whatever you want.
Right. Well, they mentioned that in the panel to us. They said that the TIE fighters, they can't take their helmets off because you don't see a TIE fighter pilot without its helmet off in any of the movies.
Unless you're, and I was thinking this during that panel, the only one we saw in the cartoon was, what's the name of the...
In Rebels? Is that
Rebels.
Oh, yeah. Who is that pilot?
He's the big guy.
Gosh.
We
are butchering this. I know. We should know this. I really don't remember, though.
It's he was in the last Rise of Skywalker, reprised his role. What was it?
He was in Rebels, and he was a TIE fighter pilot.
He defected.
Oh, Wedge Antilles?
Wedge Antilles.
Yeah, okay. Well, he wasn't he was in the Rise of Skywalker, but he was also in all three of the original trilogy movies.
Well, but I figured that would trigger your memory on that stuff. Regardless, like you could cosplay as Wedge Antilles and be able to take your helmet off, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But with this Cobb Vanth, you can build this costume in progression. There's lots of stuff on Etsy available. You can get a fabric called Swedish Dot that mimics his shirt. But you can build your costume just as the town marshal without the armor, Cobb Vanth, after Din Djarin came along to feed the Krayt Dragon. Or you can build it with it. And so you can progress this thing. And then you can walk around with your helmet off and yada, yada, yada. But the last thing that's really cool, and I know I'm going long-winded here, it's so much fun, it's jeans and a shirt and a bandana is what you can, and some boots. It's what you can do this with. You can do the Disney bounding in this costume. And it's a really inside character. You can't go walk around Disney as a stormtrooper or as a Jedi with the robes and a lightsaber swinging around. But you can wear a set of green jeans and a red shirt and a red bandana, and the people who have watched The Mandalorian are going to know who you are.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Really cool.
And it's a neat little cut into the literary world since he started as a novel character. I mean, that's just... Cobb Vanth's a deep character. He's a cool Star Wars deep cut. And I just can't wait to see your costume in April.
Yeah, yes.
When we go to all these cons.
So the last thing I want to mention about this is I wear a beard in real life. I don't like shaving, and I have a lot of gray in my beard. And so... it would be really hard. I could play an old Luke Skywalker. I don't want to grow out my hair that long. Well, I guess he gets a trim at the end in his Force vision stuff, whatever. But I can't play a young Luke Skywalker. I've already got Obi-Wan down, right? And then, of course, I could wear any helmeted characters, but I'm not tall enough to be Darth Vader. And right. But shaved characters, I'm not interested in dressing up as those. So.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see the costume. I can't wait to see it. You basically just told all of our listeners you're doing it. They're going to hold you to that. Everyone get on the Discord and make sure to hold Colin to that.
Just be scrolling through our Instagram.
Yeah, we'll have to start a Discord channel that's Colin's costume progressions, and we'll just see how well you do. Because if you join the 501st with that costume, I promise I'll join the 501st.
Oh, okay. Well, you join the Rebel Legion.
I'll join the Rebel Legion. I mean, I want some. That's my thing is the one Imperial costume I want for the 501st first is I'm way too short for, and that is the Imperial Royal Guards.
Oh, yeah.
I want to be a red cloaked guard.
We'll get you some
stilts,
sheetrock
like
stilts.
Like the Wookiee we saw.
Yeah.
There was a Chewbacca there. Amazing Chewbacca costume.
Yeah.
And he said that he was on like 1.5 stilts.
Yeah. Well, being tall isn't really an issue. In the building materials industry, sheetrock hangers, people who do that for a living, they wear stilts to reach high. And these things, in the context of building costume, are not expensive. They're functional to where you're not limited in your movement in any way. And it's not hard to be tall when it comes to these costumes.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting. I love that moment of the week. My moment of the week's a little more smaller scale, but I'm really, really happy about it. In that a few weeks back, I, on a whim, bought the Galaxy's Edge cookbook on Amazon. And so it's just a whole cookbook of Star Wars recipes. You got breakfasts and breads and dinners and all kinds of things. I haven't used it until yesterday and today when I finally busted it out. I just wanted to try a drink, wanted to try out any new cocktail, and that's where I turned to. And so I made something called the Lothal Spice Brew. I made it for Colin tonight. I had it last night and tonight. It is a delicious cocktail. You mix Guinness and brandy and sweetened condensed milk and cinnamon. And I don't, with all of those mixtures, there's no way it can't be any good. And so it is totally worth the try. I urge our listeners to go try it. And I urge you to go pick up the cookbook because it's the first thing I've tried out of it. I guarantee you it's not the last. I'm really, really excited to open it up and continue to try some recipes out of there.
Yeah, Carter made this drink for me as I walked in to record this podcast today. It is phenomenal. I like Guinness, but it doesn't hit you like a sack of bricks like Guinness does. It's not like you're drinking a loaf of bread. It's almost like chocolate milk. It's got a little bite to it, but it's good. I like it.
Yeah, it's tasty. And so I urge everybody to try that and get the cookbook. It's a really good cookbook. With that, we're going to wrap up our episode of the Star Wars Station Communication. A little bit of a long episode tonight, but that's only because we loved this Mandalorian episode so much. We had so much to talk about, and we're going to continue the conversation over on our Discord. And so you can come join our Discord. You can come join it free, or you can come join it on Patreon. For as low as $1, you get exclusive Discord access to the patrons-only Discord, and you get some stickers. If you continue to get involved in our Discord and get some different tiers, you get many, many rewards that, humbly, we both think are pretty good. We try to give you an absolute bang for your buck. We want all of our patrons to have the best time that they can. We want everybody to be able to engage with us as much as possible. We've got a lot of really cool rewards there, guys. I hope that you'll check out our membership tab because we've got all kinds of stuff. You can submit topic suggestions to us. We can do a Q&A. Like we said, you get an early access to our live reactions, and these are all within $5. So you can hear our live reactions to everything we record a live reaction for way before the rest of the world gets to hear it. You get to have access to the quarterly book club at the next level, and at just the $2 level, soon, coming about April or May, we are going to begin a Star Wars RPG playthrough. We're going to play through a multi-hour Star Wars RPG once a month that you'll be able to access for just $2. So if you like the Star Wars Station content, you want to keep hearing more of mine and Colin's voice, along with some of our diehard Star Wars fan buddies, then you've got to check it out. We've got a long season DMing for us, and I know he's excited. I know we're excited. I previewed my character a little bit at Lubbock Con. You can go listen to that live stream to hear more about it, but we're really, really excited to get involved in that. Colin and I are both pretty inexperienced in RPGs, so it's going to be a really fun experience for us to do this. And, we can't say enough good things about it, but the only way that you're going to be able to access that RPG is if you go to patreon.com/Star Wars Station and check out our membership tab.
Yeah, there's so much stuff we got going on. The future's looking bright. I'm trying to make a deal to really kick things off. I'm not going to tip my hand on that at all, but stay tuned if you want to find out. I really think we're going to add some rocket fuel to this thing. Twitch is coming out, I promise. I'm trying to get things going with this. I want to paint my models. I want to play some games. Station Media, twitch.tv/Station Media.
And when Jedi Survivor's out, we're both going to be playing it. I'll be on the PlayStation. Colin will be on his PC. From how diverse this game is, we're definitely going to have pretty different playthroughs, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, my favorite part of the first one was going and getting the double-ended saber, and it made the rest of the game easier to play because you could deflect more bolts. So I'm excited to see how, because that was the fun of these games, is you can play them however you want. It's fun.
Right. We've applied to visit some more cons all in our area, but if you're listening from somewhere and you'd like for us to come to a podcast live in your area, we're absolutely open to that. Shoot us an email, shoot your local con an email, and suggest that they get a hold of us. We're really interested in taking our podcast wherever our fans are. We want to engage with you. One of the benefits you can have on our Patreon is front row seating at all of our live events. We had an awesome live event in Lubbock. We loved it. We had a great time. I feel like we educated some folks and that they were... We walked away from that talking to a family of 3 who said they're going to go watch every episode of the Clone Wars and Rebels that we mentioned. They were excited. We tripled their excitement of The Mandalorian. They were just some pretty casual fans who really enjoyed The Mandalorian, and I like to think that we deepened their understanding of it.
Yeah. It was so fun interacting with people, meeting other Star Wars fans, and enlightening them that the Clone Wars, some of the best Star Wars, which they hadn't even seen. We didn't spoil it for them. If you watch this, it's already spoiled. But man, or if you listen to this, watch it, whatever you do. It's fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. You can still find us on Twitter at SW_station. You can find us on Instagram at StarWars.station. We've listed our Discord, our Twitch, our Patreon. You can find links to all of these things on our Instagram bio. You can find them in the description of this podcast. Anywhere you can find the Star Wars Station, you're going to be able to find the links to all of our other social media platforms. We're building a great community here, guys. We've got a lot of friends. We engage with a lot of people all the time. We've got an awesome Instagram following. We love our followers. We love our community. You guys keep us going. You guys keep us in it. So please continue to engage. And don't forget to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. We want your reviews. We really appreciate them. That is what drives our podcast. More than money, more than follows, more than listens, it's these reviews. I mean, it is wonderful to get these. And also, the number one thing you can do is tell your family and friends about us. You're going to be sitting around the water cooler at work. You're going to be sitting at college. You're going to be talking to people about the Mandalorian episode. You're going to be talking to them about it tomorrow. And if you don't want to be exhausted trying to give these guys all the background in the world, then send them our way. Say Carter and Colin will fix you up. They'll be able to give you everything you need to know for the Mandalorian. We're here for the casual fan, and we're here for the hardcore fan. And so please share us. Word of mouth is the best way to do that.
Yeah, can we give a special shout out to our one patron?
Yeah, exactly. We have one patron. We're super excited for him. Normally, we will only announce patrons when you get to the tier where we'll announce you on the show. But we want to make sure to thank Jeff Rash, our first patron. He's at the $5 tier. We super appreciate it, Jeff. We thank you so much for your support, and we thank all of our supporters. We really appreciate all of the love that you guys give us.
Add your name to the list.
Yep, absolutely. So with that, we're going to wrap up. We'll see you guys next week for Chapter 18, The Mines of Mandalore, for The Mandalorian Season 3. And with that, may the Force be with you.
I'm so excited. Thank you for listening, y'all. Have a great day.